Enjoy 1% merchant commission when you accept Lanka Pay cards. Contact these banks today.
Welcome to Times Online Interviews. Today we have with us Mr. Navin Pieris, Chief Enterprise Officer of Dialog Asiata PLC. Welcome, Mr. Pieris.
Thank you very much, Duruthu. Thank you for having me.
Mr. Pieris, to start off with, what are your most popular enterprise solutions?
Being the easy answer to that, being a telco or telecommunications company would be connectivity. But I think the last 2 years, goes without saying, has been very different. With COVID and the challenges that were brought forward from COVID, as well as our own crisis now. There are different solutions that were needed by companies. So, leaving connectivity aside, what happened during COVID? People had to work from home, and we had to be very agile to make that happen, right? So normally we had this large connectivity to company headquarters and branches and so on. Overnight, that basically people started working from home, and the requirement was just not work from home, but work from home securely. So that is one of, I would say, the most popular solutions for enterprise. And now work from home has graduated to work from anywhere. So a lot of companies now take on hybrid working. So some days they are in office, some days they are at home, but they still have to do the work. So this kind of solution is one. Then the other trends you saw during the pandemic also was there was a chipset shortage, there was a logistics issue. So it was very difficult for businesses to get hardware and so on, and get computing capacity for their requirements. So our solutions like our local cloud, the data center, these are the solutions that became very popular in this new setting, as we can say.
What are the new products and services that you have in the pipeline?
Yes, again, let's look at what's happening and the trends, right? Globally, still there's the chipset shortage is still happening with the war happening with Ukraine, and so there are supply side shortages in technology. In Sri Lanka, we continue to have a dollar liquidity problem, right? And also, our companies still are looking to grow, right? Therefore, what we are seeing is, and we are building solutions to help that. So one of the solutions that we are really scaling up is the local cloud, so that there are companies, export companies and all that earn dollars that can still pay in dollars and go to a AWS or Azure or Google. But there are a lot of companies out there who earn in rupees and have problems paying in dollars for their solutions. So we come in there with our local cloud and give them the capacity to have their applications and so on, implement all that, and grow through using our local cloud. So that is one area that we'll be looking at. The other area is everybody today is challenged. So they are looking for any efficiency that they can get, right? For instance, as you know, fuel has been in short supply, right? How do you manage if you are a large company with branches and so on, running generators or running fleets of vehicles? How do you make sure that your vehicles, are running in the most efficient manner, in the most efficient routes? Also, how are you managing your fuel and so on? So we have solutions for tracking vehicles, tracking generators, managing the fuel levels, and so on. Actually, even at Dialog, we had the same challenge. We have over 4,000 towers, right? These towers, with the power crisis, we need to keep these towers on as much as possible. And so we have batteries that take over when power goes off, then we have generators. So this infrastructure has to be managed efficiently. So the first thing we did was build a solution for ourselves. And then we saw that the solution was really something that we could help other companies with. So we productized it and took it to market. So that's another area that we are looking at. Then there's this whole area around analytics, right? Everything you do and companies do today is driving a lot of information and data back, right? So how can we use those analytics to provide insights to customers? We can provide insights on using crowd analytics on where to put your next branch. If you're a bank or if you're a supermarket, looking at how people congregate, right? Not giving out any personal data, but these data that is anonymized and show trends, right? So the analytics and the area of artificial, then with analytics you can bring artificial intelligence in and use predictive models to predict different behaviors that then can help companies grow. The other area, of course, being Dialog. We have always looked to the future. And although we know we are going through a tough time as a country, we have gone ahead with our research and so on in 5G. And we are working with like-minded companies and universities, bringing communities together to look at what are the other business use cases that we can build with 5G. So while we are doing things today, what we are saying is let's stay positive and prepare for tomorrow. And we have to have the conviction that tomorrow will be better. So these are some of the areas that we are working on for the enterprise space.
Mr. Pieris, you mentioned big data. Now, big data could be another business.
Correct. So if you look at big data use and analytics use across the world, I mean, if you look at the Googles of this world, they've been the pioneers, right? They've been using analytics. I'm sure they know more about you and me, more than we know about ourselves, right? So they've been the pioneers in using data and analytics, and there is so much that you can do for the good using analytics in the right way. And I'm glad that Sri Lanka also has come out with the necessary legislation to protect consumers and businesses and companies like us who are using analytics to provide solutions. because those frameworks are very necessary to protect you and I as private citizens, and we are glad that those things are happening as well.
You also mentioned legislation. Do we have enough adequate legislation, or should that be strengthened? As we go along, would we require new
definitely all legislation needs to be reviewed and strengthened as we go along, because a lot of these areas are very new, and we will see different usages and how people use this information. So, but having a data privacy law, having a privacy law, having a data protection law, those are the fundamentals, and I think we are definitely, if you look at the regulator, the ICTA, TRC, definitely on the right track, and we are down the right path here when it gets to that.
You mentioned 5G. When are you launching 5G?
The licenses have to be provided, or there has to be some mechanisms to give commercial licenses for 5G. Today, there is no commercial license yet. However, we have 5G network and we are testing it, and we have about 70 odd towers with 5G already, used for research and development and developing the skill sets needed for a potential launch of 5G in the future. However, it's an expensive proposition, and given today's context on capex and so on, we need to see when we would like to, when we want to launch 5G commercially, because for the whole industry there is a lot of capex that will have to be put in for 5G. But we need to plan for it, we need to be prepared for it, and it will take a while, because if you look at 4G, 4G was launched in the 2012 kind of time frame, right? It's taken 10 years for it to mature and get here and use the full capabilities of what 4G gave, right? 5G has a lot more capabilities. As you say, it's a catchphrase, right? And a lot of people think about 5G as only speed, right? I'll have faster connectivity. But if you look at the other generations, if you look at 2G, 3G, 4G, they have been kind of evolutionary in how it has been developed.
Okay.
But 5G, to me, at least, is kind of revolutionary in that it has other aspects that can be brought in to drive actually business solutions. For instance, the lower latencies, right? Much lower latency. So that's why 5G can be used for things like autonomous vehicles.
That brings me to the next question. How will 5G help our industries?
So we talk about, there's another catchphrase that we talk about, Industry 4.0,
Yeah.
right? So that is the use of technology, analytics, and machine-to-machine communication, robotics to drive manufacturing, industry, services, and so on. 5G will be fundamental in driving that kind of connectivity and communication, because one of the key areas of 5G that they have designed in that specification is the ability for millions of devices and machines to talk to each other. Before that, the 4G system and all didn't handle that very well, right? But millions of sensors, devices and all that can now be connected in networks that will drive automated manufacturing, bringing back analytics, and driving AI and so on. So one of the key pieces here is that ability. We have some way to go in Industry 4.0. We need to have, one thing is a stable electricity grid, right? Because without stable electricity at, I would say, the right price as well, it will be very difficult for us to compete as we go along. So whatever they are doing, we need to ensure as we do these changes in the next few years that we have a very strong electricity grid and that can supply power to all these. Otherwise, how do you do 5G and robotics and all that? Yes, you can use some solar, you can use some wind, but you need grid power.
Mr. Pieris, how can you differentiate yourselves from your competitors?
A few things. I think first, our vision is to also, part of our vision is empowering society and enterprises. So it comes from that. And if you look at Dialog, we've always looked at how we can serve the overall cross-section of society. So even in enterprise, it's not only large enterprise, but when we look at enterprise, we look at different segments of business, right? You have to look at it as large enterprise, you have small and medium, you have small office, home office, you can be two party, three lawyers together having a small business. So, and even within that, there are different, so you can have sectors, right? You have the apparel sector, you have the banking sector, you have IT BPOs, and all these different areas need different solutions. So one is our vision, that it comes from our vision that we look at the whole cross section and have solutions for all these cross sections. Two is our, I would say, our DNA as the future today, right? If you really know Dialog as the future today, right? And that is in our DNA, and so we always try to innovate and come out with the next set of products or the next set of thinking to drive in my space businesses. So there is the vision, then there is the DNA, and then we have support from Axiata itself. So as you know, Axiata is a regional player, right? And we have in each of our operators, and it's a regional ICT powerhouse now. So in each of our operators we have enterprise, and we have Axiata group enterprise as well. So we can bring solutions, thought leadership and so on from the region to our businesses here, right? And because of the support we bring from Axiata. Then we have other things like Axiata, we have other Axiata companies that help us, like we have ADA, which is a digital analytics company who look at analytics and also bringing different products to market in that space. Then we have Axiata Digital Labs, ADL, that develop solutions and have capabilities in moving people to the cloud and so on. So we have this ecosystem around us that can help us. Also talking about Dialog itself, our fintech side, Dialog Finance, right? A key part of business is how do you do the payments, empower digitizing digitization in the payment area. Now, even today, I think even the government is talking about e-payment, digitalizing billing, and all that. So this ecosystem, I think, helps us develop end-to-end solutions, and not only develop, we are able to get that on the ground for a customer end-to-end using this whole ecosystem and the partnerships we have within the group, as well as the partnerships we have built with other companies like the systems integrators and so on as well. So that's, I would say, that's how we build our competitive advantage in enterprise.
Mr. Pieris, you are considered little expensive in the industry. In this backdrop, are you considering, or do you have plans to relook at your product and price offerings?
Yeah, so I'm not sure I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Not to be, I don't know what to say here, but sometimes somebody told me, can you afford to be cheap? And why I say that is that, yes, you can bring different cheap solutions to market, but there is a downside to that as well, right? For instance, if you take an example of just giving Wi-Fi to a hotel, you can find very cheap products and so on that you can integrate, but these products will tend to have problems very fast. Then you have to redo, you have to reinvest, right? So as I said, we have segmented the different bases, and we have products and solutions at the right quality level and the right service level, right? And I would say the right price level for that quality and service for the customers, right? So I wouldn't say we are expensive, but what we try to do and what we do is add value. And also pass on and do something with quality, because otherwise, if take an example of a smartphone, you can buy a very cheap smartphone, but that will be gone in a year maximum a year, and you will have data surfing issues and so on, right? But if you buy a little more expensive one, it will last you longer, the battery will last you longer. So in the end, you spend less, right? And we have less support problems. You have to look at the longer term, and then you have to look at what is affordable also. I wouldn't say, we are always at this premium price, but we benchmark and we are competitive, definitely.
Mr. Pieris, the other issue that we have seen in the past and even currently is that certain companies and certain people are saying that there are call droppings from your network. How do you address this?
Yes, so definitely this is something, it's not something new. It's something that we do every day as a telco, is look at our network, the quality levels, and we talked about analytics. We have a lot of analytics about our network. So a lot of investment has gone in during the last 2 years. I would say over $150 million have gone into the network. And of course, at the start, as I said, when COVID started, there was a big change in the way we work and where we work from, right? So we used to all come to work at Union Place or to your office, all of a sudden overnight you started working from home and also working from, if you look at some of our business customers who ran call centers and so on, there are people work from all over the country, like Vaunia, Jaffna, from the East Coast, right? And initially the network was not designed, I mean, there was no precedence for that, right, in that manner. And therefore, very quickly, we had to put in the investments and do the changes to manage that environment, which we did. And then ongoing, every year, we have really invested on our network. And definitely, if you look at now, there are some reports that you can get outside in, like speed test, or there are different companies on the web you can go and see as well.
Yes.
They publish that we are pretty much the leader when it comes to call quality, connectivity, download speeds, and all that. So all that benchmarking, everything happens. So this is something that we do continuously, and we are very, I would say, we keep an eye, and that's something that we will not let drop as a telecommunications provider, because it's so important for businesses as well as individuals to keep our country going, because telco is a key enabler. If you remember, I think the minister from Georgia in the recent economic summit said digitization was a key pillar on how Georgia changed. So I would say we as telcos, and not even Dialog, I'm saying as the industry, have a big role to play in bringing and developing that digitization capability, and provide our companies and people with that capability to get out of this as well.
Mr. Pieris, we are having the worst ever economic crisis in the history of the country, probably in the recent history that we remember. In this backdrop, will you keep investing?
That's a very good question. I think Axiata is a company who has for over 20 years kept investing in the country, and I'm sure, and we look at it, yes, we have issues in the country, but I don't think we can plan to be negative, right? So our plans are always positive, but we have the scenario planning and all for if things go bad, yes, on how to handle it. Different scenarios. But given that, I think Dialog and Dialog Enterprise overall, we have a very positive outlook on Sri Lanka, and we have confidence in our people and our businesses, and that we together over time, of course it will take some time, get out of this, right? Therefore, definitely we might not invest as much right now as we have done previously. However, we definitely will invest in the right things, in the right technology, in the technologies, and in, as I said, the future today. We will keep doing that because we definitely have to believe in our country and that we can get out of it.
Thank you, Mr. Pieris, for that insightful snapshot into Dialog's enterprise solutions. Today, we need more corporates like Dialog, now especially with the current economic crisis, to look at the future today amidst the challenging economic times. Thank you very much.